In the name of our Lord Jesus, I curse this devil to go.
Get him away! Get him away!
Full disclosure, I have watched and recording this review of this movie while I have COVID-19, and it's hit me fairly hard. And I say this because I'm going to be quite critical of this movie, but I do want to give it the fair dues. I've watched this when I have had COVID-19, so I wasn't fully engaged maybe that I would normally be. We are talking Dark Light. This one is directed, produced, stars, edited by Damian Chapa. So yes, this review isn't going to be a pretty review, but I do want to kind of cover something else off before we actually get into this review, and there's a reason for it. So when I review movies, some people go, oh, well, why don't you give it a 1 out of star? Why don't I give it a 10 out of 10? Things like this. So the reason, how I kind of approach reviews and my kind of scoring system in my mind, when you're working on a film, there's many facets to that film. And just by saying a movie is crap or rubbish or whatever, you're essentially saying every facet to this movie is either good or, or crap. And if you just leave it at that, I don't, to me that's not fair. I don't agree with necessarily, particularly kind of 10 out of 10s or 1 out of 10s as a rule of thumb, unless they really, really deserve it. Because normally I do think there are at least some elements that may have worked. Even if you didn't enjoy the movie and you thought it was horrible, the editing might have been good, the lighting might have been good, things like this. There may be elements that people worked on the movie that were absolutely at least adequate for the film, if not, the story, the acting, the special effects, whatever it might, the more overt stuff may have been crap. So whenever I go into review and I'm scoring, even if it's a negative review, I still am looking for elements that I think were done to at least a reasonable standard, which is why sometimes reviews that I do that are maybe a 3 or a 4 out of 10, people are like, why didn't it work? It's rubbish. It was a rubbish film. It should have been a 1 out of 10. That will be generally the reason why, because for me, I can't just go, it's blanket rubbish. And there's very few movies that are actually like that. But Dark Light might be one of them, which is why I feel I have to say that, because this one was... yeah, we'll get into it. Let me talk about the plot. It focuses on this Interpol agent who has an experience with occult, and he is sent to Ireland to investigate a murder that may have involved elements of the occult. And he's led to this psychiatric hospital where it may have some connection to what's kind of going on. And we learn that there may well be, demon possession and things like this. What will happen? You have to watch the movie to find out, if you want to. Before we start going into this, can I say anything positive about it? It's gonna be a stretch, I won't lie, but there were a couple of funny lines here. One of the things I did appreciate, the fact that our kind of central protagonist is from New York, and he's now in Ireland, and he doesn't quite understand some of the lingo that the kind of the locals are saying, and they're saying kind of colloquialisms that will be said that he's like, what does that mean? And it was just, I thought those kind of that little nod was quite funny, and we're probably quite kind of realistic about what would kind of happen. And I've had experiences that when I've gone to America and said things and people haven't understood what I've meant. So I appreciate it. I appreciate those little kind of jabs of kind of humour there. That's kind of it. To be honest with you, it's rarely that I've seen a movie that fails on so many levels. I mean, Damian Chapa is actually quite a prolific filmmaker. He's done many movies, both starred, produced, directed, edited. So I'm surprised that this looks so amateur. Obviously it's a low budget film, and I do give, movies that kind of leeway, so to speak, and this movie doesn't try to do anything too kind of extravagant, which is a good move, obviously. But let me just break down, I think, the main issues with this movie and why I think it fails. in what it's kind of trying to do. So the general plot, first of all, is we have this huge info dump at the beginning of the movie. This massive kind of like bulk of exposition about essentially setting up the kind of the backstory. And this is all done by a kind of like an answering machine service. It's like so much information. I'm thinking, bloody hell, you know, we're supposed to remember all of this kind of like backstory that is just like said. This is like the opening few minutes. And then we kind of, you know, we're meant to believe this guy's an Interpol agent, and he's kind of going to this psychiatric institution. But people, and people who are working in this psychiatric institution are calling it like a madhouse, and people are crazy and things like this. And thinking, you know, even kind of the most basic of kind of like setups. Surely, if we're meant to believe these people are professionals, surely they wouldn't kind of like be referring to the place like this, you know, in that kind of language and stuff. At least have the pretense that they're somewhat professional and things like this. That might sound nitpicky, but you know, we're talking the first few minutes of the film here. And then, you know, we're introduced to kind of a plethora of characters that are, for some reason, they're speaking English, but all have very different accents. Incredibly hard to kind of hear. You know, we kind of learn, you know, our main character, I don't know quite why he was brought over, to be honest with you, because he doesn't really seem like he's particularly kind of well suited for this job. I'm not going to go through every kind of plot element, but it's just so kind of clumsily done. For example, we have a scene where he goes to this crime scene where there's been like, you know, some type of a murder or something, and there's like, he's like just picking up evidence, you know, without photographing anything like that, just picking it up. I'm thinking, bloody hell, I mean, it's like even the most basic of things, just like, come on. Okay, let's talk about technical level. Did it work on a technical level? No, it did not. There's a lot of people with this surname Chapa in this movie, so I feel there's lots of family members who have been involved here. The sound is really echoey. So it sounds like they've just used the microphones that are on the actual cameras themselves, because you get a lot of echoey kind of like feedback when we have these sequences that are in, like, a lot of it in the mental hospital and all that kind of thing. It sounds really echoey and tinny, quite actually hard to understand. And when you have people with accents and you have this poor audio quality, and there's even in the same sequences lines that have clearly been like re-recorded or ADR or added in that are different volume levels. You know, it's really just clumsily kind of put in there. And then we have like the editing, for example. You know, there's a sequence which is kind of outside, and we have this like kind of like one of the patients in this hospital. It's kind of got a knife, and you know, it's going from close-ups, and it's kind of having this like a more of a wide shot that which is behind these bars, which are obscuring most of the kind of the view, and it just kind of flashes between those two kind of sequences. And then we have like things that are like out of frame, so we have like a close-up on our main sort of character, and it's just like, you know, the bottom half of his head is missing and things like this. It's just kind of out of frame. It's just like a mess on a technical level, unfortunately. The actual kind of story structure itself, because it's not a movie that has much in the way of kind of effects, it's very dialogue heavy. And there's a lot of dialogue, and that can work if you have good actors and a good script. This has neither, and we'll come on to the acting. But yeah, it's just a lot of dialogue. A lot of information is just kind of like given in huge exposition dumps with a lot of kind of like unnatural kind of sounding dialogue delivered by subpar actors in just huge kind of, you know, people talking in room scenes, especially in the kind of the first half of the movie. You know, it's just a lot of it. And like I said, you can have movies that are more or less people talking. Then it is possible to do that, but you've got to be good. You've got to be good to do that and make it an engaging movie. And this one isn't. And then the acting, oh man! I mean, I will say this. Let's say another positive here. I found the acting, and I don't genuinely like to be kind of like, you know, pointing people's flaws out in regards to their professionalism here, but I genuinely found the acting quite amusing. It's actually quite funny. I recently reviewed a movie that I said, well, the acting was kind of pantomime. This is way worse. The line delivery here is awful. It is genuinely quite funny. You're watching this movie, and I mean, no one's good. I would say there are some actors, and probably Damian Chapa is in the kind of the slightly better, I would say, maybe, though he's constantly shouting his lines. It's completely unnecessary, constantly kind of like shouting lines. But some of the delivery from the other actors, oh my god, it's hilarious. It's genuinely hilarious acting. It's so bad. Apologies to anyone who worked on this movie, but it's just, that's my opinion. Like I've said, I've got my COVID plot armor on. Then we have the meager kind of like sort of special effects and things like this, and there's not a lot to it, to be honest. No, I won't hold that too much against it, because I understand there's just a lower budget. But again, we have, you know, things that are just like the film being like rewound and like smoke, you know, going back in someone's mouth and things like that. It's very obviously done and stuff. But you know, I can be a little bit more forgiving maybe with that kind of stuff. But the story itself is confusing and quite dull, quite frankly. It doesn't hold your attention and doesn't really seem to go anywhere. It's a lot of meandering in this movie. This genuinely was one of the worst films I've seen, to be honest with you, because it fails on every level. Normally, even with movies that I don't like because I didn't like the story or the acting, blah blah, I can normally salvage some good points out of it. This one, it's a rare feat where I can't really find anything. Not on a technical level, not on a writing level, direction, acting, effects. There's nothing really here. So yeah, it's quite a rare movie in some respects. Maybe it could be. I mean, honestly, I would think Tommy Wiseau's The Room is better than this. Honestly, that's what I would say, and not in an ironic way. It would be legitimately better. I'll give it a 2 out of 10, purely because I like some of the kind of the jokes in regards to the kind of the language misunderstandings, and that's kind of the best I can do. 2 out of 10. Have you seen it? Would you see it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.